listening to the Three Kitchens, a member of the Alberta Podcast Network, locally grounded, community supported. Join your hosts, Heather Dyer, Sarah Somers-Sundrum, and Erin Walker. Hey mamas, what's cooking today?
This episode of Three Kitchens is brought to you by the Alberta Association of Optometrists, proudly celebrating a century of caring for Albertans. It happens. Many people don't call their optometrist first for urgent eye care when they need it.
From spring cleaning mishaps to winter eye infections, if you or your family have an eye emergency, doctors of optometry are trained to diagnose, treat, and prescribe medications. No referral necessary. And just a reminder, Alberta Health coverage is available towards your urgent eye care appointment. To find an optometrist in your area, visit optometrist.ab.ca.
The Alberta Association of Optometrists represents almost 800 doctors of optometry in over 80 communities across the province. Members are highly trained, regulated health professionals who provide primary eye health and vision care to Albertans. Learn more at optometrists.ab.ca.
Well, welcome to Three Kitchens. We're back again. I'm Heather. I'm here with Erin and Sarah. Hello, ladies.
Hello.
And Erin made us a treat.
Well, I don't know if it was a treat. So the persimmon pudding that I made a couple episodes back, I did not get the persimmon flavor out of it. It tasted like Christmas pumpkin pie kind of flavors, which was delicious.
Which is not bad.
Yeah. Which is, oh, boo-hoo. But I really wanted to try and find something that was very persimmon-y.
Okay. Well, because we were all like, what is the flavor of this?
What does the persimmon taste like?
Yeah. We didn't really get the answer.
It was really
to that.
masked.
Yeah.
It was good, though.
It was delicious.
It was good.
Just not expected.
Right.
Anyway, so I went online and I was like, well, maybe I can make a persimmon jam. And they said, oh, persimmons are really high in pectin. So I didn't have to buy pectin for it. The persimmon goo. So pass everything through a sieve and get out all the liquid.
Right.
And you just boil that. You add sugar and then you add lemon that you've chopped up and put into the pot.
So, you chopped up the lemon, one lemon.
Yeah.
What? Why? She's like, yeah.
I'm going to stop there and just ask for everyone's review at this point, and then I'll tell you why I think it did what it did.
Okay. Okay, now that you said lemon.
There is on it.
So lemon flavored anything, I love preserved lemons. I love all that stuff, but like there was something about that lemon in there. Because sometimes lemon flavored things, I don't know what it is. I don't necessarily love it. Like, when we buy those vodkas, Heather, that have those different flavors like grapefruit and so lemon would be my least favorite. So I tasted the lemon in the persimmon jam.
Yeah.
And maybe that was the thing that I would have changed. And that's all I have to say.
What? That's all you have to say?
That's all I have to say.
Are you kidding?
Okay, I don't want to say anything else.
Why has this not been said yet? I don't know. I took on the tip of like a butter knife, I just scooped it out. First of all, obviously there's a shit ton of pectin in there because that is a solid jam, my friends. It is like jellied, and then so I put it in my mouth and I was like, what the fuck did I just put in my mouth? That's what I texted Erin because I felt like it was, never mind the taste, it tastes good. The feeling of it, I felt like buzz just sprouted on my tongue and the roof of my mouth. It felt furry for like 20 minutes after I had this little taste of it. And I was so shocked because I was not expecting this that I started laughing and I couldn't stop. And I was laughing aloud, like for, I don't know how long afterwards. Every time I thought of it, I start laughing. It's like, what made it feel like that?
So here's what I think the problem was.
Sorry.
It was so weird.
When you said you put a spoonful in your mouth, I immediately was like, oh no, I should have sent her a warning not to eat it by the spoonful. Because
it wasn't a spoonful. It was but it was a bit. Half
More
a teaspoon,
than
maybe?
Just a little taste was not a good idea. made it. It was the second batch of jam that I was working on at like 8 o'clock at night. So I don't think I totally had my wits about me at this point. I was just kind of like clunking through the recipe, being like, okay, let's just get this done. You can do this. And so I put the persimmon and everything into the pot and started boiling it up, and there was lemon juice. And then, so half of a lemon was juiced. And then that half, after you juiced it, you were supposed to dice it up and put it in the pan and boil it all together. And I did that. And then it said, once it's cooked for 30 to 50 minutes, I think 45 minutes I let it cook for until everything looked really soft. It said, blend the contents of your pot and pour it into jars. There you go. Part of me was like, blending up the lemon peels. But I didn't stop and think to taste it before I did that. Because I think the reason that it made our mouths feel like fuzz.
Like there's fun fur coating your tongue.
Like you licked a velvet shirt.
Yes. Not that I've ever done that. I'm quite sure I have not, but
it's okay.
But now you know how it feels.
Yeah, you know. Well, you can touch velvet and imagine what it would be like to lick it.
Yeah.
So it was either because I put the lemon peel in there and it made it really bitter and weird, or like I think my persimmons were water baggy enough, but maybe they weren't ripened enough.
Oh, right, the water bag.
And this is what the astringent persimmon is like.
Right.
And nobody has really described to me what an astringent persimmon tastes like, but they're like, once you put it in your mouth, you know, because you will know. And
we know now.
Maybe the persimmons were still astringent.
Oh,
I didn't taste it before I blended the lemon peel in, so I don't know if it was the fault of the lemon peel or the actual persimmon itself. I can't tell you.
Maybe both.
So,
maybe together they react or something.
Together.
Sorry, I can't even.
So I will not be insulted when you just put that down your compost bin.
Okay. So then later on, my husband pulls it out of the fridge and says, oh, what's this? He's like, always when there's something homemade, he's like, it's gotta be good.
Yeah.
He's like, what's this one? It doesn't have I don't think it was written on or whatever.
No,
and I said, well, you can try it, but just be warned. Like, just try a little. And then my older son was there too, and he's like, well, I want to try. And I was like, I don't know if you're going to like it, but you should try. You should. So they did the same with a tiny, like, little bit. And my son was like, you know, when you got something in your mouth and you don't want to swallow it, but you're kind of like, he's like, he goes, what is it? It was so funny because I knew exactly like what he was feeling. I'm like, just swallow it. Just like,
it'll go away.
My husband said, oh, that's really odd, but it's a shame because it tastes good. Like he really liked the flavor of it. He just seems like I finally know what that word mouthfeel, or those two words together. When sometimes you see this word mouthfeel and I'm like, what is that exactly? Well, I think I've just learned mouthfeel.
Now
furry mouthfeel.
Oh God. Yeah. So persimmons still have escaped from my grasp.
Not a lot of luck with.
They still haven't won us over.
Two strikes here. You know what? Third time's going to be the charm, ladies. Whatever I make next with persimmons is going to blow us out of the park. We just had to trip and fall over the last two. So I'm so sorry, everybody.
That was just, it was so funny. Too funny. Man. I couldn't stop laughing at that jam.
What are you making that's going to give us mouth feels?
So
now I'm going to be worried about mouth feel all the time.
Mouth feels.
I am making for you, for your enjoyment, a beef Wellington.
Yay! I'm so excited. Somebody's doing this.
Wow. Yes. I've never made this before. And it's one of I believe it's British. I was just trying to find the history of it. It goes back to like early 1800s. It's named after the Duke of Wellington.
Oh, okay.
But of course.
But you know, I don't
Why
think
is it named after him? Do we know? Did he just want meat wrapped in pastry?
My meat must be wrapped in a pastry. Something to celebrate his victory of the Battle of Waterloo in 1815. But I mean, I don't think wrapping meat like cooking meat wrapped in pastry it's not just an English thing, right?
No.
All over the world you see
All over the world, yeah.
Meat wrapped in pastry,
right?
Different flavors, different fillings.
Sorry, I always think of when people say Beef Wellington, I always think of Hell's Kitchen. I think of Gordon Ramsay, and I think of him screaming, "It's raw, you donkey!" with a few other flavorful words in between that sentence, but
extra quacks in between.
Quack,
yes.
quack. There may be a few duck quacks happening in my kitchen while I cook it. Just swearing at myself. Who knows?
Like, that's why I've never tried it, because I can't understand how you would cook the meat without looking and seeing and touching the meat and knowing the doneness of the meat inside the pastry. So Heather's going to do this for us. Woo-hoo.
I'm going to do my best. So it actually has, it's not just a beef tenderloin wrapped in puff pastry and baked. There's layers of stuff. So you're browning the meat first, then it's wrapped in prosciutto, which Gordon Ramsay would call Parma ham, which I think is the British name for it. So you're wrapping it in that, because tenderloin doesn't have a lot of fat. So I think you want the extra layer with a bit of fat to it to kind of seal it. Then you're making something called a mushroom duxelle, which
what?
Duck?
Cell? It's mushroom duxelle. Duxelle. I think it's a French something or other. Sorry, it's not duck quack. It's duxelle.
Can you pronounce that better?
No.
Isn't it like French? Doesn't it have like a Z?
Oh my God.
Come
on. All right. So it may not be pronounced exactly. Maybe I'm, anglicizing it, but I'm saying duxelle because I don't really know how you say it. Okay. So it's, let's see. There are chopped mushrooms that you're frying up with olive oil, thyme, and according to Gordon Ramsay's recipe, some seasoning. Gordon, I need a little more than just some seasoning. So I'm going to have to do a bit more.
Like, what the seasoning means salt. I think he just means salt.
Okay. Well, it needs to be
salt
a little
to
more
taste.
Clear.
Yeah, that's it.
You donkey.
Exactly. So you're cooking it to get the moisture out of the mushroom to make like a paste. So you're getting kind of like a mushroom paste.
Reduced.
Kind of
right.
Yeah, it's reduced and it's called a duxelle.
Okay.
And you cool that. Then you're putting, so you've got your layers, you've got your pastry, your prosciutto, your mushroom, your beef, and everything is getting wrapped around. So if you were to slice it,
you're going to see those layers.
Yeah.
So, and you said that the beef will be seared, correct?
Yes. So I believe you bake it until the pastry's done. And I would imagine that then your beef is still quite rare. Like, I don't think you would open that up and have a well done piece of meat.
Imagine.
Right? So maybe if you wanted it more well done, you would sear it longer. Maybe.
So how long is the baking time?
15 to 20 minutes until pastry is golden brown and cooked. Rest for 10.
Heather, is it a bad thing to just take that big log of meat, that beef that you have, and cut it in half lengthwise and make smaller Wellingtons?
So I actually was already thinking that I'm going to make individual Wellingtons as opposed to one big. So traditionally you would do the entire tenderloin and then slice it, but I want to do individually wrapped
smart
tenderloin slices, more like a tenderloin steak, because then you get more pastry. Yeah. Which is like, true. Why wouldn't you want more? And like
Sold.
Everything, it won't look exactly the same. You won't be slicing it open and getting that beautiful ring, but I think it will cook better maybe and it'll be easier for me to deliver to you guys rather than having to slice it up and then you get this kind of cold meat and the juices run and all that.
2 for me, please.
2 for you.
I love steak.
I'll try.
We can put in requests for more than one serving.
I'm just joking.
I'll see what size of beef. I was telling you, I was at Costco and I was like, I'll go look at the tenderloin. Well, holy man, they have the giant $160 beef tenderloin. I was like, even half of that would have been much like,
that's a bit
I don't know how many how many Wellingtons you can make out of that puppy. But
Yeah.
it was like, whoa.
I recently saw a Wellington recipe that somebody did on, Instagram's little food reels. And they had cut a pattern into the pastry that made it look like a basket weave.
Wow.
I know, I've seen lots of beautiful ones too, but traditionally it seems to be, there's usually kind of it almost looks like a crosshatch sort of. And I watched the recipe. I watched Gordon Ramsay on a YouTube video make this.
Mm-hmm.
And he did not. It was just a simple, he didn't do any embellishments to it. So maybe, I mean, you can do it however you want. I'll see how creative I decide to be. But so there's a lot of steps. You got to make the mushrooms, I think, ahead of time.
And cool it down.
Piece, because it has to cool. You do that ahead of time.
And can we talk about the pastry? I'd like to know what goes in that.
I'm not making, are you going to say I'm going to make puff pastry? Because I'm not.
Oh, is it puff pastry? Well, I wasn't sure. So it is puff pastry. Okay. Yeah, no,
I do realize I could attempt to make my own, but I'm not in this case because I already got enough going on and it's December. And no, I'm not making puff pastry, but I'm not opposed to trying it in the future.
Eventually.
It's not for this one.
Right.
So I bought frozen puff pastry, which you can find at I buy the PC brand because it's pretty good at Superstore.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll worry more about the duxelle and the meat and not the pastry. And also I know we're talking about like how long to cook it and everything, but like these photos, that pastry is dark. Mm-hmm. It is not baked like the strudel where it was very pale.
Yeah,
this is like super dark. So it's cooking a little bit longer, baking maybe a little longer than you might otherwise bake a pastry. So that might help the meat. I don't know. It's an experiment. That's what we're all about.
Are you brushing anything on top of the pastry before you bake it?
Yes. It says brush with egg wash. So, egg water and salt, which is pretty typical for puff pastry. Usually you want a little bit of color on the top of it.
Browning.
And then Gordon Ramsay has a red wine sauce that he likes to serve with his. So I may look at doing that.
Yes.
So I don't know exactly what it'll come with. There's not a lot of like when he says seasoning, if you think that's just salt, maybe it is. There's not a lot of seasoning mentioned in the recipe. It's like thyme.
You've got the mushroom sauce. You've got that bruschetta. Not bruschetta. Prosciutto.
Oh, thanks.
Prosciutto. I don't think I ever say that right either. Don't get me going on Italian.
I said bruschetta. I went for the complete. But you've got all of those flavors going in, and mushroom and prosciutto is like the very strong tasting
prosciutto.
You should call it the British Parma ham. They call it that. They just call it that to make it easier for themselves to pronounce.
Because they're already pronouncing Worcestershire.
And he suggests using a mixture of wild mushrooms. So I think you could get creative with what kind of mushrooms you pick too. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
I hope it's cooked. That's my concern is just that the meat is cooked.
This episode is brought to you by Park Power, your friendly local utility providers in Alberta, offering internet, electricity, and natural gas with low rates, awesome service, and profit sharing with local charities.
Winter is coming, and energy usage for all Albertans will be increasing. So now is a great time for listeners to look at their utility bills and ensure they are on the best plan. Albertans have a choice of utility providers.
Park Power is happy to provide free, no-obligation comparisons. If you decide to switch providers, it's easy, and you can feel good knowing you are supporting a local business and helping to give back to our communities with your utility bill. Learn more at parkpower.ca.
Okie dokie, Heather.
Shall we talk about the Wellington? I feel like I'm a little all over the place. I apologize if this is not very chronological.
We're drinking vodka, listeners. Okay, we're drinking vodka.
We're enjoying our evening.
Right. It's a very different time of recording.
Masterpiece theater.
Yeah, the opposite. Usually we're a little bit more refined in the morning, but now we're just letting loose and talking about our dinner.
I'm trying to be organized, but it may not happen. Just go with it. Just go with it.
Post-dinner conversation.
Yeah, pick up a vodka and drink with us, and then you'll understand it better.
There you go.
Just press pause, get half a drink in you, and then join in.
There you go.
Okay.
So I had a double dinner today because I had just heated up my dinner and I just scarfed it down, and then my doorbell rang.
Yeah, Heather texted to say, I'm sorry for delivering food at dinner time hour.
I know. What was that?
And I was like,
I did think of that after the fact. I was like, oh, what? Actually, isn't that the perfect time to deliver it?
That seems just right to me.
I just thought if you had already been sitting down with your family, then I'd come ringing the doorbell.
Oh, you know, it's always chaos at dinner, just trying to get everyone to put food in their mouths.
So I brought you an individually wrapped beef Wellington and a scoop of mashed potatoes.
You did?
Because I was making them anyway. Should we get into the recipe, or do you want to give your reviews first?
No, you go for the recipe.
Okay.
Well, it depends. Do you want to hear all the praise first or at the end?
Let's hear it at the end. Let's get through how you make this thing first. I think you should definitely do it for Christmas because it's tasty. But I might recommend doing it in one piece, the traditional recipe, because it would be so much faster and easier to just do the whole tenderloin, wrap it up, bake it, and then slice it to serve it. I'm sure there's a reason why they do it that way. Okay, so I had a fairly large tenderloin. It was like 2 pounds. And I decided that I was going to do these individual portions. So I seared the whole thing as one piece.
Okay.
And then sliced it into steaks, essentially.
Right.
And then, so there's a big process here. So you've got your mushroom duxelle, which we talked about.
I looked up the pronunciation on
duxelle.
Duxelle. A U in French has a very ooh.
Ooh, duxelle, so not duxelle. Okay.
Exactly.
Duxelle.
But I thought I'd let you guys know that I went and Googled pronunciation for this one.
Very nice. She's determined now. She's getting them right.
She's learning German too.
Learning German. We'll just call every time it's another language, she's learning German.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's not going to be French. Framboise.
Why not?
Yeah. It's a British dish, so there's nothing else French to say. I had actually done the mushrooms in advance, so I whizzed them up in my food processor. I just had those little brown button mushrooms and portobello.
Okay.
But I think you could use any kind of mushrooms that you like.
Right. They had recommended that you could go crazy with the mushroom.
Any kind of wild mushroom.
Ramsay was kind of vague on the mushroom part, wasn't he?
He was vague. Yeah. Just any old mushroom. And you kind of want it to become a paste. So I just chopped it all up in my food processor to make it finely kind of minced. And then you're just cooking it in a pan until it sweats out all its moisture. Put some, as he says, seasoning. You guys told me that was like salt. So I put salt and pepper in there, and there's thyme, fresh thyme leaves.
Right.
And that's it. And as it cooked down, when it was almost looking like it was toward the end, I happened to have some white wine in my fridge, which I personally love with mushrooms. So I threw in like 1/3 of a cup.
Oh, nice.
White wine toward the end of it, which smelled like heaven in my kitchen.
Oh, that sounds so good.
Ramsay says clap.
He claps.
Clap.
I'm not a donkey just yet.
Not a donkey.
whatever horrible insult he would think of to call me. Okay, so you have that done. It's like a paste.
So you mean it ended up being a paste as it reduced in the pan?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. It's like a brown. It doesn't look appetizing, but it tastes good.
It tastes damn good. Okay.
Yeah. So I set that aside, and then I ended up putting it in the fridge, and it sat there like until later on when I wanted to make my Wellington.
Can I go back to the mushrooms for a sec? Sorry. I'm thinking, and I want to ask this question. Didn't you make your dehydrated mushrooms, or have you made that mushroom powder yet?
I have done that. Yes.
Did you do it by cooking your mushrooms and dehydrating them, or did you just dehydrate the mushrooms themselves?
I sliced and dehydrated them and then ground them up in the coffee grinder.
Could you dehydrate the paste you made?
Oh.
To do what? Like to then use that as a powder for the Wellington, you mean?
Use it in everything.
I see. Okay.
I suppose you could, because it would have probably a bit more flavor than just the straight old mushroom.
It would.
Pepper duper tasty. As like a, I don't know, specialty something. I don't know.
Like
sorry,
seasoning.
My little mind just kind of wandered off there.
What did Gordon Ramsay call it? Seasoning?
Just seasoning.
That's a seasoning.
Some seasoning.
Some seasoning.
Not even a measurement of seasoning, just some seasoning. That's what these chefs say. A little olive oil, thyme leaves, and some seasoning. It's like, well, figure it out for yourself, donkey. However much you want to put in there. Okay.
I think it's you effing donkey, but anyway.
Yeah. No doubt. Okay. So you leave that. You want it just to cool while you're doing your other stuff. I had to set up my station because I was feeling a bit already like, okay, what am I doing? Because I was doing these individual portions.
Right,
so I've got
right.
my puff pastry that had been frozen. I had taken it out of the freezer, so it was room temperature.
So what, did you put that in the fridge for 2 hours or something?
I kind of took it out this morning and put it in the fridge and left it there until
Okay.
I was ready to use it.
Okay.
And I ended up using 2 boxes of the President's Choice frozen one that I usually buy.
Yeah.
I think I could have rolled it out a little thinner, but you tell me what you think. I think it could have been a little thinner, but it was still good. So you've got, first you lay down your prosciutto. I just used parchment paper on my counter so it wouldn't stick.
Okay.
And then put your duxelle on top,
Okay.
like a layer of it. Spread it out. Take your slice of meat, if you're doing individual like I did. Brush Dijon mustard all over that piece of meat. I had the super grainy kind. I think any kind of like a spicy mustard, any kind of mustard, it just gives it a little extra something.
Yeah.
Seasoning, if you will.
Some seasoning. Does it?
Yeah.
Does it give you some seasoning?
Okay, but before you put that mustard on, you did salt your meat overnight, correct?
Oh, I did salt it when I brought it home before I wrapped it up in plastic and put it in the fridge.
So that's like a little Samin Nosrat tip that we have learned, is that when you salt something long enough, a meat long enough, especially overnight, but at least
like an hour,
the longer the better. It actually changes the texture of the meat, and the salt actually absorbs through, which you could really taste that in your beef Wellington.
Good.
I loved it. Yeah.
Yes, I did do that. And you can, with the other half of the tenderloin that I bought, I didn't use it all. The other half of it, I also salted, wrapped it up tight, put it in the freezer. So when it comes back out later, it will already have been salted.
Genius.
Because I'll forget, right? Like I'll probably forget later. Okay, so we're back. We've got our mustard on there. You put it down on top of your layers. You've got your duxelle and your prosciutto. Wrap that up. So you've kind of got a little package that looks like it's wrapped in prosciutto, right? Then you put it down onto your pastry and wrap it up. It just doesn't matter really what it looks like. I saw some beautiful.
I thought yours looked really nice.
Yeah, yours was very
It looks kind of like a folded package, like a nicely folded present,
like a Christmas gift.
Exactly.
It was
There's, if you look up on Bon Appetit, I think it is website, they do like little ones for parties, like a little tiny
no way
Beef Wellington, and they do a little bow with the pastry, and it looks like it's beautiful little like 2-bite gift.
Like, you mean like a finger food?
Like a bite-sized appetizer.
They do like a little, it would be probably 2 or 3 bites, but they're just like tiny ones. And they did this little bow with the pastry. And I was like, oh, that's so cute. Maybe I could. And then I was like, oh, fuck it. Like, I've already got dirty hands. And then I thought, no, I'm going to be messing around with it. No, it's like, just wrap that sucker up. It's going to be good. And then before you bake it, brush it with egg yolk, a little bit of water, and salt.
Okay.
Brush that all over the place. Give it another sprinkle of sea salt if you want, which is what I did. And then in the oven. And I used my meat thermometer. I put it in the biggest piece that I had. It's hard to get them. They're not going to be uniform exactly, which makes it a little tough because your meat is not uniform, right? One end is usually bigger than the other end. And so I thought maybe I'll just cook ones that are like the same size together. And I went until the thermometer said 160, which according to my thermometer, that was medium. And I took it out a little bit before because I thought it will still be hot. And the pastry looked good. So I didn't want to overdo and have the pastry too brown, or I don't know. It's just so hard to know what's going on inside of that little package. So I took it out at, I think it said 148, and then sitting on the counter, it definitely got to 160. So I think you have to kind of play with it a little bit. And that's how you do it. I mean, it sounds, to quote Sarah, sounds super simple, but it actually is quite a bit of work, and you've got a number of elements to.
I didn't say it was super simple. I
not
said
this recipe.
Okay.
Other things.
Like other things. Okay.
Other recipes.
Because that's your descriptor in general. This one's really simple.
This is more like a special occasion dish. I would say it's not a quick.
You're not making individual wellies for your kids' lunches now?
No. However, you can freeze it. So before you bake it, wrap up your little packages. Don't put the egg wash on. Just get to the point where they're wrapped before you bake it. Because as we're talking about the meat being irregular shape, toward the end I had like kind of weird little
shaped. There's kind of funny
bits.
guys at the end. Hey.
And I was low on a couple things. So it was like, I didn't have quite enough. Get lots of prosciutto because you're going to eat it anyways, probably.
Mhm.
It's easy to run out from the package. So these little irregular shaped ones. And some of them had mushroom, some of them had prosciutto.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
They didn't have both because I was trying to spread my stuff. And those ones I didn't bake. I wrapped them up tight in plastic and put them in a Ziploc bag and I put them in the freezer and I'm going to pull them out like at Christmas and bake them for lunch and I'll see how they've held up in the freezer. I'll let you know.
That sounds great.
Oh, and my kids also claim they don't like mushroom. And when they smelled it cooking, they were like, ugh, what's that horrible smell in the kitchen that I was salivating over because I thought it smelled like heaven. And they were like, ew, what is that? So I did theirs without mushroom, just wrapped in prosciutto and mustard. And I'm going to see what they say because the bite that they tried of mine earlier, they were loving and it had mushroom in it and they didn't know that. So
They didn't know that because it's umami.
because they don't pick it out. It doesn't look like a mushroom.
No.
Children of the world, mushrooms are flavor sponges. Whatever you put them with, they absorb the flavor. So don't complain to me that you don't like the taste of mushrooms because the mushroom only tastes like the delicious butter and garlic and onions that I cooked it with.
I can see if it's just a raw white mushroom that's in a salad or something. Yeah, it doesn't taste like anything. It's not really. So anyway, you can sneak that in there. If you have people who don't like mushrooms, they might not even know. But don't, if they're allergic, you don't want
That's
okay, Heather. Okay, if they're allergic.
Clarifying.
You don't want to bring up the EpiPen when you're enjoying your welly.
What Three Kitchens podcast said.
Said you could sneak it in, even if you're definitely allergic.
Oh, that's too funny.
Okay, I'd like to hear how you enjoyed it.
I thought it was more than medium well done.
Agreed.
And so I was a little bit like, oh no, this is going to be tough. But it was a tenderloin. And the thing about it is I never buy tenderloin because it's not my favorite cut of meat. But however, she had tell me what that is called because I'm going to call it bruschetta for some reason.
Prosciutto.
She had the fat from the prosciutto and the flavor from the mushrooms in that meat. And then the meat was still tender, even though it was more than medium cooked. And it was so good. And which makes me happy because now I'm not worried about overcooking this.
Yes, I agree. Although I'm with you, I would have taken it out sooner had I been able to see it.
Right.
Right?
Or like just having bigger pieces would have made the doneness maybe closer to what we're imagining. Just
Perhaps.
Because you cooked it in
and I'm imagining
pieces,
it
right?
to Gordon Ramsay's little rants and the pictures and him throwing it in the garbage. As soon as you dropped it off, my husband started following me and saying, well, am I going to have part of that? And then with his puppy dog eyes, and I'm like, oh my God, I guess. And so I gave him half. So I got to cut it. Yes. And then I looked in it and it was a little pink in the center.
That's exactly what we did. Yeah.
It was a little bit more than medium. It was fantastic. Honestly, I do not usually like a steak that well done, but this was, I don't think I would want it any less well done. I think it was perfect.
Interesting.
It was warm. It was lots of flavor. It was
so
clearly
tender.
Salted overnight. So tender. And you said that you wish the pastry was thinner. I don't know what you're talking about.
No, I think because the one that I had, when I cut it open, I could see just a little bit where the pastry didn't look totally done. Not that it was raw, but it wasn't flaky all the way through. And I thought maybe it's a bit thick, although I didn't complain when I was scarfing it down. It certainly tasted great.
And with the mashed potato, it was delicious, actually. Yeah, it was really nice with that. Yeah.
Yeah, same deal. You dropped it off at my house and I was like, okay, leave now. I want
She's
to go eat
okay,
this.
see you later. I thought she was just busy
bye.
in the kitchen.
I was also busy in the kitchen, but then I was busy in the kitchen and hungry and had food pre-made delivered to my door. Best timing, in my opinion.
Okay, good.
I was super duper hungry. I was in the middle of cooking, which makes me hungrier. So I grabbed my husband and said, the welly's here. We've been calling it your welly and making a bunch of really inappropriate jokes. So, just so you know. So we chopped it in half so that it was, we're only children, so we have to make sure that it's chopped exactly in half.
You have more. Why does she have more than
So
I do?
I got to cut it in half. Dan chose the first piece. And
my cat.
That's how it goes for my kids.
Yeah,
that's a sibling thing, not an only child thing.
Yeah.
Well, it never became part of my life until I was an older adult. So
well, they're both only children, so they don't know anything about this, right?
Yeah,
so
I know.
it's hard for them. Yeah,
it's so hard.
I talk like I'm not an only child. Anyway,
Yeah,
go on.
Sarah knows too well. So good, Heather. Oh my gosh, like I couldn't eat it fast enough, or my husband finished his half really quick and then was like trying to steal pieces of mine. And I was like, are you out of your mind? I will stab you with this fork before you get a piece. The mashed potatoes were delicious. I agree. It was the right amount of pastry on there.
Yeah.
It wasn't perfectly flaky as it was in contact with the meat, but whatever. It was
I guess it wouldn't be. It wouldn't be, right?
No.
Because you have moisture and the what's touching it. The prosciutto is what's the barrier between the pastry and everything
It's
else.
not
And there's
soggy.
fat in there, right?
Exactly.
Like there's fat in prosciutto, so it's not going to be crisp all the way.
Fat is good, guys. Fat and then
Oh yeah.
And
Freaking
sometimes,
delicious.
when someone bakes a pastry type thing and the bottom gets too hot and then it's hard to cut through it, because I can say you did not do that at all.
Yeah.
It
It
was
was
like
tender. It was so easy to cut
it
through.
was so easy to get through. There was no sometimes I've made pies and pastries that I'm like cutting all the way through and then I'm like, why isn't it separating? And you have to really get the knife in there and almost snap it to make it break because the bottom gets so hot. No, none of that. It was beautifully done.
It was on the tray, bubbling around them all. And I thought, oh no, is it going to be soggy on the bottom? But it was, it was the weirdest, kind of weird when you think
you British people.
how it
you're
all
just
cooks
very
together.
smart.
And you can't go wrong with meat wrapped in pastry. You really, you just,
and when you throw in
can't.
mushrooms and prosciutto, no problem.
And where did you get your meat? I was going to ask you.
I went to Costco.
You
in
went
the
to
end.
Costco. Okay.
Yes. And I got the smallest of all the pieces that I could find.
The smallest massive piece.
Yes, because they're so big there.
Because it's Costco. It's Costco sized.
But that means I have another giant piece in my freezer that I can, and I was thinking, I don't think I could make it any other way now because I love this so much. I just why would I make what else am I going to do with that tenderloin? Yeah. Nothing. This is how it has to be.
Well, Heather, thank you. I know now what I'm going to do for Christmas because this has been my husband's request for the past few years. Maybe this year I'll make the Christmas wellies.
Yeah. My husband was like, I can't believe Heather went and made this. I came up with this. And I was like,
what?
You did not invent the beef Wellington. He's like, I invented meat wrapped in bread. And I was like,
no.
Okay, just eat your piece. And
sometimes you just nod.
I just know that, Sarah, if you make it, it's going to be beautiful. There's going to be some design. There's going to be some fancy thing going on.
Take a
Can't wait
picture.
to see it.
Take a picture.
Awesome.
That's fantastic. I think that is totally something I'm going to have to make.
Yeah.
At some point.
Erin, if you want to go in on a big, massive piece of tenderloin, let me know. Because I think I'm going to have to make a trip to Costco.
Let me check my freezer.
Well, thank you, Heather. Thank you for second dinner.
I'm glad everyone enjoyed it. I don't think Gordon would have yelled at me. Maybe for my technique, but not for my end results. So I feel pretty good about it.
A donkey.
You passed the donkey test.
I don't think I majorly. What is this? I can't do the accent, but I just remember this episode where you're what is this? It was something just unrecognizable. All right. Thank you for listening, people.
Thank you for dinner.
Go make yourself a welly.
Do it.
And now for the fine print. We at Three Kitchens gratefully acknowledge we are telling these stories in the traditional territories of the Treaty 7 Nations in southern Alberta and the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. We honor the rich tradition of oral storytellers on this land who have come before us. You can find pictures and recipe links on Instagram and Facebook at Three Kitchens Podcast. If you like and subscribe on your podcast player, that helps more people find us.
Santa says, make Beef Wellington for Christmas. Ho, ho, ho.